Mihlam yes nkama nabantu Mkhanti nyamazane
Siyakhuluma kakhulu leli khaya. Kuze kungiphathe kabi nami kwezinye ikhathi ukuthi ezinye zey'ngxoxo empilweni akufanele ngabe zikhulunywa yimi. Ngoba fangabe kade sahlula kuso. Phambi kokuba sidlule emabhonweni kwafanele sidlule kuzo lezi zinto. But-ke akusenani. Hayi mzokethu asiqhubeni sihlabene phambili. Siyacathulisana. Ungaka-subscribe ka subscribe. Haye ukukhomenta lapha nibe ngasubscribe ngoba ngizwe mase ngingasamphenduli kube ngathi ngichemile. Bathanda ukujoyina ke. Membership like has $20. Ila ngishare khona ama video ngabonayo ukuthi anezinto ezi-practical engazenza. Now, ibhlungu mzwakethu ukuthi isikhathi esiningi ngizithola in a position where I have to be the dissenting voice, and oftentimes I have to address the fallacies in our cultural practices and historical references, address them and expose them for the fallacy that they are. Now, I don't do these things. Mind you, I'm speaking English now because this is a universal issue that's affecting all my people. Now, I don't do these things because I'm bored, or maybe I just want to throw a spanner in the midst. No. This is not just a work it for the fun of it kind of situation. These are very serious and dangerous issues. And they persist. And because they persist, we cannot get out of the trap. We are in a trap. I mean, it's a giant trap because it's made out of millions of other small traps. We are in this trap just simply due because we are very stubborn. We just do not want to be told that we are wrong about something, or to be told to change something. Now, that's the very sad part of it, is that it means that as a people we don't understand the thing called culture and tradition. Culture and tradition must work hand in hand to elevate a community. And if it does not elevate the community, then it needs to be changed. That's just how it is. Culture. We can talk a lot about how other nations have changed their cultures many times up till now. But I think I will figure it out. It's not going to get this anywhere because you still won't get it. So let's not even go down that road. So instead, let's say today, let's talk about this thing of surnames. And surnames are quite closely intertwined with culture. Surnames, we take them too lightly. And that's one of the biggest problems we have. We assume that this thing of surnames is just a, oh, by the way, kind of situation. But it's deeper than that. Inbingelele lapho ku chat. Now, firstly, let us examine how they came about. The thing that we were doing before invasion, when it comes to organizing our families and community, if you saw the thumbnail, our households were built in a very interesting fashion. Let me put it up here. Was because sometimes I talk about things and we need to have a picture of it. Now, some kids got about my illustrators, so over time we can afford to hire their services. So, yes, this is how our households used to look like. In the old times. Now, if you examine this picture, it tells you quite a lot about the organization of family. In the traditional sense, you will have the entire family built around umcebo, which is your kraal, and the kraal itself is designed in a certain particular way. And then you find that around the kraal is the houses, the different houses and rooms for different members of the family. And if you were the father and the husband, umninikaya of this home, all your children will build around here. And Mabetata, oh my God, they'll come and set up a small hut as well. Up to such a point where you as a father deemed it necessary for your son to go out and start his own umuzi. It's called a home, umuzi, homestead. I like the Nigerians because they still use the concept of a compound, because that's exactly what our homes were like traditionally. Now, that said, the arrangement of the whole household as it was, it tells you something very key about identity. All the children of that household were known by their father's name. If I am the founder of the house, Ubaba Wekaya, Givusimos, Gizala Taban, for example, I would be known by my father's name, Uvus Musika Taban. But my children, who are mine, would be known by my name. Sandile Bagavus Mus, Spanbane Bagavus Mus, Spanbane Bagavus Mus. Up to a point where Sibugu would, umfana wami, usekhulile enough ukuthi usengayoqala indawo yakhe. So that was the arrangement of families back in the times. We used to live in compounds like that, and we used to be able to live together. We don't know what happened. Somehow we can't stand each other anymore. We just cannot stand each other. It's very sad. But that's what they found us doing originally. And that's where the whole thing of identity revolves around. Now, here's what's very key about that, is that if you are your father's son or your father's daughter, knowing full well who your father is firsthand, then you know full well who your grandfather is. When you go there and want to talk to the elders, you are very clear who you are talking to and how you relate to them. This kept us very clearly aligned in terms of following our genealogies. It was not confusing, and it kept us very circumlocated. Now, you still have that habit of circumlocation amongst those people who call themselves AmaZulu and whatnot. Uhlezi kushiwo ukuthi Amazulawa, they don't like traveling, they don't want to leave Natal. It's because somewhere in their genes, these people who live in the KZN area tend to have a very close relation to living within circumlocation, But yeah, it doesn't work out in the way that it used to be back then, because we can't get along anymore. It's very difficult. But I'm just trying to highlight the point there, Uti. Some of the different clans don't have that urge they don't have the wanderlust, because they lived like that, circumlocated, which also puts a very big question around the theory of from the Great Lakes down to the south they came. By the way, it's a theory. Now, people tend to misunderstand and think of the histories that have been published to be fact when they are not. They are theories. But the thing about theories is that it allows us, the faculties, to test it. Now, here's the thing that is very important regarding that particular statement. If you test something and you find that it doesn't really work and it doesn't make the sense, 1 + 1 does not become 2, then something is wrong there. And what do we find? We find that in our own community, a lot of things don't make sense and are not working, but we persist with them very stubbornly. Yet we imagine that somehow we are going to prosper as a nation and community. It's not possible. So yes, unomthandazo ka Khumbulani oka Thabani, yabo. That's how it used to be arranged. Now, fast forward, come the 1800s. There's a bloodbath in Ngome. You see, I'm talking these things because there's a lot of things that have been put down on the table for me to examine after the trip of Ngome that reveal a lot of things. By the way, the endawo yaseNgome iphethwe umlife. Inkosi yakamlife ephethe le ndawo, and you can do your own research and find out umlife, what was his role and what did he do to get that piece of land given to him by the way, it was given to him by the Dutch, the Voortrekkers. And that's the case with most of Amakhosi is that they were installed there by Voortrekkers, but I digress. So yes, we find that actually after the 1883 there was a big problem now, where the English and the Dutch, now instead of taking pieces of land, huge chunks of land, now having established their government, because you see the Yampi yaseNgome was not even about land grabbing. It was them now having land grabbed for some time. It was time for them now to start establishing a government to take over. That's why they installed Umpande for you. That was a takeover. It was a direct takeover. That's what they do. They do it everywhere. They removed the legitimate person, or whoever it is, and installed their person who is going to be their puppet. And that's the case with that family even to this day. I digress once again. So their plan was to now administrate Izwe. And they found, with all these people who speak a very similar tongue, they are having a problem. Because when they stop you and ask you who you are, and somebody else says somebody else says Smangaliso Gavusmus, but that didn't give them any semblance of what exactly is going on with that. And then they find ukuthi around the same circumlocation, say for example around that area, say Ohale Ncom, uthola ukuthi Ohaleni bonke laba bantu lapho bahlala ngakhona have many different names and many different surnames, as they would call it. Now it becomes an administrative headache. It even became worse when they moved on to the strategy of let us tax them. Because, by the way, people don't understand warfare. Warfare works like that. This thing of Ukanda Bondwe, the head tax, was not even about them being great and whatnot. No, it was a war tactic. It works everywhere. You put taxes when you are playing siege. You put taxes in effect so that you uzokwazi to unqunda amandla esitha, bring down the potential of the enemy to rebel. Now, when they start taking your cows via this head tax kind of thing, now it starts becoming a problem where in certain cases they needed to administer a solution, and these people are related, but they don't call the same surname. Gandhi, what's going on here? And then they gather a few of Amambuga, by the way. They gather them around and said, you guys, listen here. We have taught you our languages. You are educated. Now, so tell us, what do you know about such and such and such a place? Oh, indawo esemkhizwaneni. Oh, abantu abanjani laba? Hayi, ubusa inkosi yakuthi ukuthi. Oh, okay. Lapha ya. Oh, kwakubusa inkosi. Okay, no problem. So let us say labantu abaqhamuka lapha emkhizwaneni, we are now going to classify them as Omkis. Hence the term surname, because surname means ukuthi igama lombusi waleyo ndawo. By the way, if you understand the etymology, the sire, one who is a sire, the overlord, the name of the overlord. That's what the surname means. Look it up in your own books there. Do some research. Now, so but okay. I mean, they've known this thing for years. They've been using it, even in organizing their own community. So now they know how to work it, and they gave it to you. So Tandile, Gasbonis, okay, Zavelaphi. Hayi ngiphuma ngapha Ohaleni esigodini ubani inkosi yalapha? Hayi umlifi. Okay, so umlifi kanjalo nje. So it became very problematic, and then people started really rebelling, because there was a lot of rebellions around the head tax issue and the whole thing of people being made to amalulwane. Then they start asking, okay, kahleke thina phela sibona abakamlifi. You see, sino baba wethu esimaziyo uVusumuzi. Nisho ukuthini ukuthi sese abantu bakaSibani. And then they came up with another solution to the problem. So, okay, you tell us what about this village Kamkhize? Kwenzakala lapho ubani abantu who are prominent men. See, and then bese kwadidiyelwa kanjalo ke lento eniyibiza ngeyithakazelo. Kwadidiyela ithakazelo. If you examine izithakazelo zethu, you find ukuthi ithakazelo zakoMkhize, ithakazelo zakoMabaso, Khumalo, Mtungu, ithakazelo angisazi muphi lomunye umndeni nezinye futhi nje. But somehow the author of that poem would put in this phrase ukuthi nina enadla umuntu nimyeka ngendaba. Bayazi ngesimikhizo name, we talk about this all the time. And in the other families as well, there's always a signature futhi nakhona ekhuluma ngokuthi I forget, but niyazazi ibongo zenu and niyazi ukuthi somehow ziyalinka. And it became very important because abelungu wanted to find out from you ukuthi nizalwa ngubani as abantu laba babaficela. Yabo, who is your father? Because anmazo Adam nina. So where do you people come from? Wasuba khona ke lentsomi yokuthi basididiyela zonke lezi ithakazelo. And then at the end of them, they wanted to culminate them to the one person, abathi umuntu. So they did that to the best of their ability. Kuqhamuke umngu. And then supposedly one of the people who was on the project was Oagamguni, obviously Yazik. When you are working on something, you want to be the one shining there. And then you became Abanguni. You see. No problem whatsoever. Let us say, wouldn't Abanguni. Ne? No problem. Let's say you are Abanguni. You are Ngunis, you are Sutus or whatever. Let us say. If you are a Nguni person that says you are descending from Untu, right? You're descending from Untu. You start counting etymologically, you start counting down genealogically all the people that are said to descend from Untu, from Mumguni to Luzmani and all the way down. You count, you give it a generation, each generation being 50 years on average. How far does it take you back from now? Look at the timeline. Examine the timeline. How far does it take you back? Now, when you discover, actually it means that Untu was born somewhere in the 780s. If Untu is born in the 780s, and this is a very interesting part, they say, wavela ohlangeni nomhlabathi, which basically means he appeared out of nowhere. That's what it means. Umtu just appeared out of nowhere. So that means that's the genesis of Abantu. Okay. Now, do you mean to tell me that the origins of Abantu came long after the baby Jesus was born? Does this make sense to you? Because it takes us squarely to a time that is AD. It could be 700 AD, it could be 90 AD, it could be what, but it's near post-Christ, they say. And then even that fact tells you the intention behind this thing was to create a narrative that says you people didn't exist until we came here. Injalo ke yabona ke khuzwayo nazo bathi nalala nomuntu navuka ekseni nakhwifila. All of us sisenza lento ke manje according to okushuthi ihlobo phela ke manje niyabona. Sihlala belungu. So the idea was to create a narrative that says that as Abantu, you did not emerge long before even Christ was there. There is no history of yours that goes beyond that time. That's why I was asking in the group, what were we doing in 1651? Nobody remembers anything because the narrative has been owned by somebody else. So no problem whatsoever. Let's say we are going with that. Now, iklupha phi lento wena? Iklupha lana ke kutheni wena wazithola usunesibongo esithi uDlamini, no problem. But in actual fact, you do not descend from uDlamini. Abantu bakini abamazi uDlamini loyo. But if we track now our birth records, we discover that actually, if you go all the way to the 1888s, uzothola ukuthi no, actually you were born as a Dlamini child. You see. In fact, our birth records abantu, they started somewhere in the early 1900s. But let's not be pedantic about that. So you were born as uDlamini. But that man who gave birth to you, kwakuVusumuzi kaThabani. uThabani naye nobaba wakhe noyihlo yakhe noyihlo wakhe naye noyihlo wakhe all the way back there. So mase ufika ekhaya usuthi uthetha nabadala, ubize umnguni kabanibani, ubize uDlamini osibalikhulu banibani, kuba neproblem. Okay, lo nami ubize ubani la akhuma ngabo la. What are these people? You see, baxake ukuthi hayi lo muntu ngabe ubiza thina, ubiza ubani labo bantu labo. We don't know those people. But for showcase, masizobheka ama-ID akho, sibheke ama-birth certificates, showcase uDlamini. But lapha in the Tongas, the ancestors were passed on. There is no Dlamini there. They just happened ukuthi uVusumuzi kaThabani was living esigodini esinenkosi uDlamini. Not that he was related to him. And then you wonder why. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Then you wonder why ukuthi nibe nenkinga engaka ngendaba yesibongo, because it's problematic. It also explains why abanye benu who actually don't even have proper surnames don't have a problem. Because bakhona phela abayazazi nokuthi abakabani isibongo, kodwa nje impilo yenje ihamba nje kahle. Futhi nje ba driver baphumelela abavinjwa next. Because abahlali lapha emsamo babiza amagama abangawazi. So they've never offended anyone. You see, it's a double-edged sword. Case 22. Those who know are damned. Those who don't know are damned. And this is why in Mkizwaneni we always talk in terms of let us undress the historical fact for what they are, a manufacture of the imagination of those who came here to conquer. They just imagined things for you. They created variables. If it's this one from that side, then variable B. Bangrupa base banikeza. Baze bazonikeza banetha bathi ningabanguni. Bathi ningabasodo. You see? Even classifying people who don't even abangahlangene ukuhlangana nobusotho, or the Tswanas and the Buddhists. You go to the Tswanas, they'll tell you, Tina, we are not even Sotho. We don't know what to get anywhere with that argument around this part, because our people are so caught up in being stubborn and refusing to test things and examine things with a lens that says, is this thing really what it is? And it tells me, Uti, nazo inkinga, you don't have problems. Your lives are okay. You have not struggled anywhere. You are not striving anywhere. You are comfortable and very cozy where you are. So there's no impetus to push you to examine things and discover if the facts that are on the table are really facts or just manufactured. Yeah, we even talked about the thing of Shaka Zulu, and we examined his historical tales. This sounds too familiar to things that were happening in Europe. How is that coincidental? There's no coincidences in human history. Agwas. How can Ushaka and Caesar in that book of Julius Caesar have the same death expression. Now, we digress, but these are very intertwined, and you have to look at things from all aspects. It's very metaphysical, but at the same time, you are able to test it out and see for yourself. Now, say usubizileka abantu ke laphana and you're not even related to them. Well, how do you think into lapha ekhaya emsamo izosebenza kanjani? How are you going to cooperate with your people? Who's going to be there for you to protect you when you don't know the people who gave birth to you and where they came from? Ungabazi okhokho bakho ukuthi ubani. Where are you going to get the protection? Mrs. Buyisela ekutheni ukuthi ningenwa amadlozi nje because you are busy summoning people only ngabazi. You don't know the Kwabes, no, yeah, all those, yeah. You don't know those people. They know you. This is what we're dealing with. So people must look at themselves and look in the mirror and find out where they come from. It's a very difficult thing. Now, Izibongo is very key, but inkinga lento. Very, very problematic. Look at Ushaka and look what was going on in Europe. It's serious lento kamlelwane ngasenza khona. It's very serious. Kwakukhandwe umthabo oserious westory. Kodwa ke akusena. Now see bahlali. Angisho ukuthi ke ziyeke nezibongo zenu njengamanje because we don't have ama options. Something needs to happen first. Samele kulungiswe indaba zobukhosi before we start giving proper direction ukuthi abantu abenze kanjani. And that means we have a lot of work to do emkhizwaneni. This is why kuyimbi le esiyikhandala. We have a lot of work to do. We are facing very serious principalities of power and evil. It's not a joke. Now you see, no problem. There's another aspect of it. If ukhuzwayo uyisibongo senkosi ethile emndenini wakwaQwabe, okay, right, no problem. Wena ke ngalesikhathi ubiza ukhuzwayo Qwabe yeye what lapha emsamo kini or wherever you are, ngalesikhathi umbiza lo muntu, are you sure ukuthi wena uvele ebukhosini? Yini ezothi ukhuzwayo noma uQwabe nombani lo osukubabiza labantu bezithakazela? Yini eyenza ukuthi ezomenza ukuthi ayeke uyobheka his own descendants azogada wena? If we're looking at our ancestors and playing a very vital role in our daily lives, amathongo esiphethe esilawula esiphelezela, let's say this is the case, then how is Ushandu going to leave umndeni who actually descend directly from him and come to you? Are you sure, for sure, certain ukuthi you are related to that inkosi? But you say, Majosi, you didn't untrust anyone. Ababuna uninstalled amakhosi and you just rolled with it. That's the problem. And once you allow people to come and give you ama-leaders, ziyakhala, and zikhala ngempela. Zikhala nje kuba loudspeaker, kune-amplifier. So, yes, sinazo izibongo. But we must also have this understanding ukuthi isibongo kahle kahle more than half the time kusuke kuyizibongo zenkosi zamakhosi athile ibongelwa ukuthi iyabusa endaweni la ebusa khona nokuthi izalwa ngubani mayebongelwa bese kukhunjula okhokho bayo inkosi hayi wena lapho kini. So isibindi singaka sokuthi nihambe nithi nimakhaya niyokhuluma nama-ancestor lokunibiza amakhosi eningazalwa yiwo nisithathaphi? And how is that supposed to work out? Yazi kuze kube ngcono abantu who have izibongo that actually don't represent a particular person, I've noticed they seem to do quite better in life. For example, labantu laba bakomkhize. Umkhize was not a person of any sort, actually. It was Umkhizwana, the place they came from, because of Umkhizo wawukuleya ndawo. So those ones tend to not be offending anyone. Yabo. So there's uba naleso siyekelwana. This is why sometimes they tend to stand out quite a lot amongst the herd. They tend to be very established and wealthy. Hayi ke njengamina-ke angekho famous, angekho wealthy, angekho established. But bese ngikhuluma nje ngoba ke ngibone khona labo bani oshoni, ozwele Mkhize ubani, very powerful people. So you tend to get them quite a lot there in that family. And you meet them in the streets sometimes as well. You find, actually they are very notable characters in Tetwabo. Yeah, there and there. Angisho ukuthi leminye imindeni ayinakho lokho, but I tend to notice that about this particular group. And they don't use a particular surname. They don't use a surname that invokes a certain person. It invokes a certain place. Perhaps this is why kuba lula kubona to even think properly. Sometimes wesinhlanhlathe sonke, sometimes amaphutha phela yenza konke abantu. But yes, that's not the issue here. What I'm trying to illustrate is that when it comes to this issue of Izibongo, it is so critical, but we take it for granted. And it is concerning to me, we come from a place where there was no such a Izibongo thing. You see, and now we are using a Izibongo thing. At the same time, it's taking us away from our direct relationships with our own ancestors. And the other thing that it does, it diminishes history and where we come from. Suddenly, we don't exist past a certain point. Who told you that? We've been here for many, many thousands and thousands of years. They dig up bones. What is that place, Kambe? Those caves, Zgatopayas, that I'd like to mention here on this channel. Yeah, but they have a lot of published works. They even have found Homona lady here, who was supposedly the oldest very human version. So there's a thing, Amatambo, Amadala, they are strangely finding them in this place, but they are so adamant, no, these people did not exist past this thing, Gamgun, Hamangun Wongelao, which is false. It's a false narrative. It's just an insult on our intelligence. Sizidumu thina. Sikwazi ukuqangela amanga and lap them up nje singaquestion. And the thing about this one is very universal, because even the Basotus know their own story as well. They became a Basotho, and it was because of Sterkfontein caves. They became a Basotho because of that cow thief who became Mushweshwe. but that's not where they originate from. They don't just come from that particular time and place. They were there before that. The people who spoke the language that they call Sesotho today, they were there. Futhi, they were coexisting with AmaZulu, funny enough. I know for a fact, one of my great grandfathers had taken a wife there. Even there in that house of Kwajama, ukhona umama laphana owayethathwe uJama, wazala umkabayi nomama. Umkabayi is a Sotho name, by the way, if you're looking at today's standard. Those twins were from a Sotho woman that Jama married. But now AmaZulu, I don't think they know this. I don't think if they even paid attention to it. So there was that relationship there. Now tells you there were no borders or boundaries. And you talk about Ukhumalo. Ukhumalo actually were even having homesteads in the Free State now. That place that is called the Free State. That's where Ukhumalo come from, by the way. They come to this side, Bepushwa Amapun, who were taking over the place. Those places are Harry Smith. But nobody knows that history anymore. So things become so very strange. They are shy, but we don't notice. Things are hitting us hard, but we don't notice because no one has the audacity to ask the question. Well, this doesn't make sense. Yeah, Bonozinga. Apparently, all of you are Ngunis. They are very proud to say that nonsense. Or shooting now, when you count, start from any family, even this family is supposedly directly related to Umgun. You only count about 10 kings. Belandelana generations. That means 10 times 5. So basically, what? 500 years. This is saying that between Ukuzwayo Lumtu is a 500-year period. Hey, because it tells me actually what I always say here. The narrative is that we did not exist before 1652. Because if you count 500 years, then it takes you slightly 1500. You see. And all this information Labantu Labas claim to have by Tatanini, because it took them until the 1700s to reach this site, all the way from Cape Town. When did they examine the culture? Who was telling them all these things about all these different people? For them to be claiming to be so expect at this particular subject. That's a very difficult thing. This thing of amakhosi because I think once we deal with that one, everybody will have a very strange awakening. Doc, we can change these names and call ourselves random things. I wonder if we can. That would mean we are starting over. I guess that would be interesting. They will now tell us Umkizwa Neni will have to become a particular village. gated communities. Yabona-ke makopane injalo-ke injalo. We are ancient in this place. We are extremely ancient. Akikho lento yokuthi siqhibuke. We did not qhibuka yesterday. We did not qhibuka yesterday. These people who are insisting on this cultural mambo jumbo / historical, akho history elapha kulezi zibongo zenu. Ayikho. Hayi chunu madoda. Angaliwa manje asali chunu. Asali. We sishaya nge-reasoning. People must be learn to be reasonable. If they don't want to take the line, ilungile. Leave them. Don't worry. We need to now start doing this thing of, oh, okay, we're doing our own thing. Those who want to join us must join us. Those who can't, they must leave. We can't be, like I was saying just yesterday, you cannot force yourself onto my people, because when was off abasale bona bantu bedikadikwa ke izinto ezodwa badikadika. So I come here, I look at all the presented pseudo history and literally undress it, and I don't do it because it's fun. I'm not saying there's fun in this. It's not fun. It's very sad to unlearn the things that you thought that you knew. Because you see, truth is very strange, but it must it must be taken for what it is, and we must not pretend like truth is not a thing. Yeah. Amitaba. Asivalelaphi. It's just to cover everyone, because I know I speak sometimes in isiZulu here and people don't catch what I'm trying to say. But this issue of surnames is involves us all. It involves everybody. And it's been a very strange debate in my own faculties. Hey, konje lento yesibongo ngempela yahlupha kangaka kwakwenze njani? What are we doing wrong? Then find ukuthi no, actually sibiza amagama abantu singabazi emakhaya ethu. Abantu abazalayo asikaze sibabize ngelodwa ilanga. You ask anyone ukuthi ngo-1888 ubani umkhulu wakhe ugogo wakhe owayekhona ephila ngaleso sikhathi leso, and uthola ukuthi abantu abasazi bazi nje ukuthi bangaba Zulu, bangaba Gumede, bangaba bani. It's very sad. And the solution really is to just let's start over if you really want to have a solution. But kuzomele siyiqale la ekutheni ukuthi ake silungise leya lamakhosi lawa agcwelela asingawazi nokuthi amakhosi ngoba kwenze njani. Sibonge kakhulu bantwana basemkhizwaneni. Niphile nje. Ungasubscribe subscribe la. Ungakajoyini bhatanisi 20 rand akusimali enkulu kabi la. Iyasiza ukuthi siloku siba busy la phambi kwenu. Sithatha ama-hour in a day to talk about these things instead of being out there and hustling. That's an interesting way Tat. wenyuswa lento yabangoni ngikhuluma ngelinye ilanga ngoba inomuntu wayo inomnikazi iyo lento yabangoni uthanda ukuxoxa ngizwe ngathi bathi ubhungana ngazi wakuphi kodwa uyena uthanda ukuxoxa lento yabangoni angifuni nje uyifaka into engayi understand ngoba kusaphusha zona lezi zinto lezi zokuthi lokhu sidayiselwa insomi esitshela ukuthi siqhibuke izolo enjalo wekhuzwayo as sad as it may be inkinga yethu iqala lapha ekutheni ukuthi we are just living a big fat lie yabo it's a miracle wakhona ukuthi we are existing but the funny part is we laugh at African Americans as if bona bane problem enkulu because they don't even remember who they are but not we are in the same issue. That's a funny thing. We are crying for African Americans over there in the diaspora in captivity, but that is naking efanayo. The names that we are responding to are not ours. It's sad, you know. There's gamete, but there's no relation to that gamete person in your family. But guys, what you need? Angithi phela abantu bafike basidelela bayitshela ukuthi asinamlando asizinto engasile emakhanda bazoyithathela nje nangempela ke bavuma nokusetshenziswa phakathi kwethu abanye ukuthi bathathise labizwe nginishiye kanjalo philani nje qhubekani niphile.